Hello everyone, welcome to Trending Teen Culture for Parents. My name is Paige Klingenpeel and I'm a licensed teen therapist. Today we're going to talk a little bit about sex and maybe why you need to talk to your teens about it as well. And so I have with me David Meinsner. He is the executive director of a Hope Center, which talks about this stuff every single day. And more importantly, will give you wisdom today to prepare you to have those conversations for yourself. So first off, thank you so much for joining me.
Privileged to be with you today, Paige.
We've enjoyed conversation behind the scenes, and we think this is such a necessary conversation to have. So first off, tell us a little bit about what the Hope Center is like and what it's about.
Well, Hope Center is a pregnancy resource center. Mm-hmm. We're there to help young people, young adults, when they're dealing with an unplanned pregnancy. That takes on many different forms because we have many different individuals and coming from different backgrounds and circumstances that influence that. But most of the time, they come into our office because they believe that they're pregnant. Hopefully the young lady and the young man will come together, but a lot of times it's just the young lady that first visit, and they'll come in for a pregnancy test. If that test comes back positive, that opens up a whole new opportunity for us to be able to work with them and minister to them. If it's negative, our opportunity, our window is very small. We can share with them some information, caution them on making right choices and good choices and setting boundaries for their lives so that they don't have to come back to us with an unplanned pregnancy in the future. But if they come for have to come back with a planned pregnancy, that's where we begin to interject our limited medical model, offering the pregnancy test, getting them started on their prenatal vitamins, helping to make sure that they have a doctor to go to and start that whole process. Sometimes if it's low income, getting them connected with some of the other organizations here in town that can come alongside them as well. We try at that point to encourage them to bring their boyfriend back with them. When you can have both of them working together, that makes the process a lot easier. We try to get both of them involved in what we call our Earn While You Learn program. That's where they will meet one-on-one with a peer advocate, females with females, male with males, and we're able to take their specific situation and begin to help them work through that. What hurdles are they going to have? What challenges are they going to face? How much knowledge do they have about being a parent? And begin to guide them through that part, that journey in their life. We also offer parenting classes where we will help them learn how to care for a baby. Sometimes it's helping to learn how to manage their money and their resources. Maybe it's the need to find a job and helping them to learn how to fill out applications and do interviews. Practical things that will help them to be able to care for and provide and nurture the little one that they're carrying. We act as a sounding board for them. They're dealing with frustrations. Their bodies are changing. They have no idea what's going on. And we get to say, hey, that's okay. That's what's supposed to be happening. And helping them work with their parents. Sometimes the parents are just as shocked as the young people are. In some cases, there's a resistance there on the part of the parents. In some cases, many cases, they're thinking, okay, I don't want to be pregnant. How do I get out of this? And they begin to think about an abortion. And they usually think that if I have an abortion, all this will go away. I can have this abortion and no one will ever know that I was ever pregnant. And yet they don't stop to think that there's going to be some consequences, even for that choice. It's going to affect them physically, possibly. It's going to affect them emotionally and spiritually. And so we're able to help them see that there are other choices besides abortion, and that abortion is not the best. We never encourage, we never promote, we never help them schedule or refer for abortions. We're a Christian pro-life organization, And that's our first and foremost message with them. We also work with the fathers, helping them to understand what it means to be a good dad. A lot of the guys who come in, they've grown up in single-parent homes where they've not had a solid male role model. They've had no dad there. And so they have no idea what it means to step up and be responsible. What does that look like? What does that involve? And we're able to come alongside them and encourage them and help them and hopefully bring them to the point that they are going to be responsible dads, and they're going to be in the life, and they're going to be supportive of the young lady as well as the baby when the baby finally comes. We start that early because we also have the opportunity to be in 18 of the area high schools talking about sexual integrity.
I find that amazing.
18 of the public high schools and private high schools in our area. And we're also now moving into junior high schools.
Wow.
We've done 4 or 5 already this semester, and we're hoping to add at least another 5 each semester over the next couple years alongside what we do in the high schools. And the whole goal of that is to help kids understand that one of the biggest lies on high school campuses is that everybody is sexually involved. And that's simply not true. And when they have knowledge and when they understand, we're giving them power to be able to say no. Helping them to consider the tough questions before the tough questions are there. Helping them to make boundaries, and so that they understand what is right and what is wrong. Example, Friday night, no basketball games, no football games. What are we going to do? Young lady invites the young man over to her house to watch a movie, and they're going to order pizza. Nothing wrong with that. Family room is where the TV is at, downstairs. Nothing wrong with that. But if the young man gets there and nobody else is at home, that's a recipe for something to go much farther than you intended for it to go. And let's put up the stop sign here. Maybe we need to get him to his house rather than her house, and maybe we should not be downstairs in the family room, and let's go make some other plans.
And it's just the little things, like you said. It's just planning ahead, setting yourself up for success. Now, let me just, as a woman, first off, and having 4 children myself, pregnancy is terrifying, even if you've already been through it 3 times before. Your body is changing, and you're in a secure marriage relationship. You're great, but you're still terrified. So imagine a teenager that has maybe no support at home. And that's what I love about what you guys do, because you can Google this information.
Right.
But the relationship of face-to-face saying, we're going to help you get through that, that makes the lasting change.
And I think sometimes it's also the realization that there have been others who have gone through this before me, and they've made it. For a teenager, mom and dad may be ready to kick you out.
Yes.
How do you tell mom and dad that you're pregnant? How do you deal with your friends? Now, granted, I think we live in a society today where pregnancy is almost glamorized by some teenagers. You would not be shocked, but a lot of your listeners would be shocked at the number of young people in our local high schools who are already pregnant, already are mothers and dads, and the numbers continue to go up.
Well, and can I also be frank in saying that there are some teens that are actually intentionally getting pregnant, and that is that's a paradigm shift for us parents to know that information.
And sometimes that's because they're looking for acceptance. They're looking for love in all the wrong places. They're looking for something that, in this case, not them loving the baby, but that baby's going to love them, because that love is absent from the home. That relationship is absent from the home. You have a single parent who's working 2 jobs and trying to keep the mortgage paid and food on the table, and sometimes those teenage kids are the last thing on their mind. Their emotional well-being and what's happening in their lives. And those kids still, they want to be grown up, but they still want to be little kids too.
Yeah, absolutely. And they should be.
Yes.
It's just unfortunate they can't in the environment. So,
We also find, with our teenagers when they come in, it's the thought of, well, I wanted to go to college. I wanted to pursue this career. I wanted to get this degree. I'm a star athlete. And there's a lot of vulnerability there. How am I going to afford this? And so they begin to think, maybe the best solution is an abortion, and then I don't have to worry about it.
mm-hmm.
And we're able there to come alongside them and help them realize that, no, that's not the best solution. You're just trading one problem for a whole slew of problems.
And that's one thing that I have come to understand in my practice, as well as being a mother, is that, and this isn't a political statement, a pro-life, pro-choice, this is it. Kids feel like it is a choice and that they have to make one. And it is scarier to think to go forward with this pregnancy than, like you said, to just eliminate it, the problem goes away. But as we know, it doesn't. And there's so many other complications that come alongside them. But so what I'm hearing is the Hope Center does the crisis management, because in that moment, they just found out they're pregnant and they are terrified. But then they walk alongside them. And that has to be so amazing for them.
Our advocates oftentimes become that mother or father figure, that grandma or that grandpa there. They're not being judged. They're just being accepted for who they are. I think the exciting thing, and I think probably the way that we can tell that we're touching lives, that we're building relationships, is that even after the babies are born, they come back to show the baby off. They come back for additional parenting classes. Last year, we had the opportunity to be a part of 20% of the births here in Allen County alone. We had the opportunity to offer 508 ultrasounds to young women who were abortion-minded or vulnerable. A list of things that we shared with you. And 94% of them chose to give life to their baby.
Because they saw that baby, that
because
heartbeat.
They saw that image. And that is huge for the guys. That is huge for the guys, to be able to see that life moving inside of them. We had a young couple. We had just put our new ultrasound equipment in last year, and we put big screen TVs up on the wall so they could see the images on the big screen TVs rather than just a little monitor. And we'd just gotten one hooked up, and a young couple came in, him and her, and they were both abortion-minded. Well, they were able to see that, and that young man stood and looked up at that screen, and he said, "That's my baby. That's our baby." And he turned and looked at her and said, "There's no way we can kill this baby." And they ended up carrying the baby to term and parenting that child.
That's amazing.
It
is. And I love how you pointed out that it does make a difference for the man, because the woman notices the changes. I mean, the morning sickness, all of those things are present. The guy, they don't see that. It's not real to them. But when you see that pulsating heart, that's reality check for sure. So what an amazing blessing that you guys have that opportunity to show them. That's life. And so that in itself answers the question of why is the Hope Center necessary in our community? Right there, saving life. Now, I also understand that we're talking, we often have that misperception that the lower income is the one that struggle the most with teen pregnancy. But let's also be honest that that's not true. That in fact, we have the higher incomes, and we're blessed in our community particularly that we have some higher income areas. And I think if anything, they need to be having those conversations more with their kids. But parents believe that if I talk to my kids about sex, that will make them want to have it. So how do you combat that?
I think one of the neat things is there are those times we get to work with parents. Maybe it's one or two times. I think of a father who came in with his daughter, and he was just angry. He was upset because his daughter was probably going to test positive, and she was underage, and so that's why he was there with her. Our staff came and said, "Hey, we've got a dad out here who's just really irate with everything." So I went out and we sat down and talked. And I asked him, I said, have you ever made a big mistake in your life? And he said, well, yeah, sure I have. Haven't you? And I said, sure I have. And one of the things that he was so upset about was he was embarrassed because he was a deacon in his church, and now his daughter is pregnant. And so I knew I had that spiritual side to rely upon. And I asked him, I said, you know, when I made a big mistake, or when I've made big mistakes in my life, I am so thankful I have a Heavenly Father who loves me and who's willing to forgive me, and He's not going to just abandon me. And then I kind of left it there. And we talked about a few other things. That thought could kind of sink into his mind. And as we were kind of wrapping up our conversation, I said, you know what? I'm proud of you. It took a lot of courage for you to come in here as a dad today. You could have dropped your daughter off. You could have pulled around the back and hid in the back until she was done. You could have just made her come and not come with her at all, but you came with her. And in a few minutes, she's going to come out and tell you, Dad, I'm pregnant, or no, Dad, I'm not. And if she comes out to tell you that she's pregnant, that moment in her life is going to be one of the most important moments in her life. And as a dad, you're going to be here to share that with her. Maybe not the way you had planned, maybe not the way you had anticipated, but you're going to be there when your daughter needs you the most. And I'm proud that you stepped up and been a dad at that moment. And he just looked at me, and you could tell it was sinking in to his conscience.
Can you imagine?
He had to come back a week later with her, and we saw him and he just thumbs up, totally change of attitude. He realized that he wasn't going to be able to change what had happened, but he could come alongside of her. And so we were able to help parents come alongside and understand that it's not the end of the world. May not be what we chose for our kids, but it's not the end of the world either. And they probably need you more now than any time.
Well, and parents, we take on our children's behavior as if we can control it. But I mean, even God is an example that we have free will. And so He can't make us do something, and our children the same way. Tell me a little bit about the age appropriateness of the conversation of sex.
Oh, I can't give you a number. I won't give you a number. I think it has a lot to do with your children, your environment at home. Do you have older kids? I mean, if you have 4 kids, that time's going to come a little sooner for your 4th one than it does for your first one. I think it depends upon environment. If they're in a church environment, I don't think it is as early because they're a little more protected, a little more sheltered. I think it depends upon the kids that they hang out with at school. I think it depends upon their maturity level. I think it depends upon their physical development.
That makes a big difference.
Makes a big difference. I think a lot of parents worry about when is the right time. This may sound strange, but the right time really begins when they're 3 and 4 years old. Now, what I mean by that is we have to develop those relationships with our kids when they're young so that when we need to have those difficult conversations, it's a whole lot easier.
Yes.
I guarantee you, most teenagers know more about sex than their parents did when they were teenagers. Most teenagers know more about sex than their parents want to give them the credit for knowing. The key is helping them to understand and discern the right messages. As parents, I think every parent dreads, fears that conversation. How do I start it? What do I say? And yet I think we need to realize that as parents, we have the opportunity to speak truth into the lives of our children, whether they're little or whether they're old. And we have to begin preparing those opportunities when they're little by having the conversations. How'd your day at school go? Talking about the difficult situations in life that they're going to encounter, so that when you have to come to the sex conversation, you're a little more at ease because you've already developed a verbal set of communication skills with your kids. And you're going to be able to read them, and they're going to be able to read you. And it's still going to be awkward, still going to be hard, but it's a whole lot easier. So I encourage parents, start developing good relationships with your kids when they're little, because there are always going to be difficult situations to deal with. If it's not sex, it may be something else. And if you develop the good rapport early, those conversations become a lot easier. I think also for parents, we're often afraid to be vulnerable. And what I mean by being vulnerable is that we're afraid to ask questions because we're afraid to have them ask us questions because they may ask a question we're not sure how to answer. But I think asking questions of your kids is a great way to teach them about sex. Ask them, what do you know? What have you heard? Where did you hear that at? Do you think that's true?
Those are good questions.
You learn from your kids, and that helps you know where to begin. If you're answering their question, you're connecting with them already. They don't want to hear a dissertation from you, but if you're answering their questions, they're
and
engaging.
to be fair, the authenticity that comes from not knowing the answer, I think allows them to feel like you're safer to come to, that you may not know the answer, but you're both going to explore together. Now, I love this because you told me a story about a parent who thought they had a great relationship, and the child knew it all, so they didn't need to be talking about this stuff because they're in 6th grade. Tell us a little bit more about that.
We were invited to come to one of the local schools and speak for a group of 6th graders. The school asked us to prepare a letter, permission slip that they could send home to the parents, which is fine, which we did. The school sent them home, and for parents to sign off whether they wanted their 6th graders to participate or not. I had a mother call me at home, and she was the head of the PTA and wanted to know why we were coming to their school, who had invited us, and I pointed out that the school had invited us, the principal, the teachers, and it was like, oh, okay. Well, she wasn't sure if she wanted her daughter to go because they talk about everything, and she knew that her 6th grade daughter didn't know anything about sex yet, and they weren't ready to have that conversation. And I encouraged her. I said, it's your choice. We're here to help. I'm proud that you are calling and checking things out, that you want to be engaged in your daughter's life. I applaud you for that. And so we just left it at that. She hung up, I hung up. We went to the school, we spoke, it went well. The next week, she calls me one evening very late. She says, I hope I'm not calling too late. I said, no, you're fine. And I'm wondering, how did she get my home phone number?
Right?
And she said, I just wanted to thank you. I said, for what? And she said, well, I allowed my daughter to go. And I found out after she went that there were a lot of things that she knew already that we had never talked about. And I realized that there are just some things that my daughter's going to understand and know that we've never had a conversation about, and that we don't talk about everything like I thought we did. And so it was a good education for me as well. And I said, no, the real education happens now, because you have this information, she has this information, and you have the opportunity to help her process it and make it real in her life. That's the real education. She said, I never thought about it that way. And so, yeah, it does happen. One of the reasons that we're trying to get into junior high schools and are starting to do that is because we realize that the kids are knowing more and more at a younger age. TV,
Yes.
magazines, internet, video games,
Books, music.
The whole gamut. I mean, there are probably some songs that I could listen to on the radio and I probably couldn't tell you half the words. But my niece or my nephew could pick it up in no time.
It seeps in.
It seeps in. It does.
Yeah. And so you parents know at home that because they are being exposed to that, which I ultimately believe is a distortion of truth, the way that the world portrays what sex, relationships, even beauty is. It's all a distortion of what God, I think, intended for us. But if we are not addressing those, if we're not talking about it, even at the age of first grade and kindergarten, about what beauty is, about what relationships should look like, that is where they're going to gain their truth. And that's where we need to go
model
with.
those relationships at home too.
Good point, yes.
Between husbands and wives, modeling them even with our children, in how we treat one another, and the respect and the love that we have.
That is a very good point. Modeling is so important. So you have a big benefit that's coming up, April 22nd. Tell us a little bit about that, and maybe the parents at home, how they can contribute.
We do a fundraising banquet every spring. It will be April the 22nd at the Memorial Coliseum. It's one of the biggest banquets held in Fort Wayne each year. We have coming this year Carol Everett. Carol Everett is a past abortion provider out of the Houston area. For many years, she ran multiple abortion clinics in the area. And she was one of those people who are propagating and sharing messages with young people as young as first grade, building those unique relationships that when young ladies are pregnant and expecting, they will come to that abortion clinic because they've bought into that message. She's going to come and she's going to share that night about some of the things that we need to be aware of that's going on in many of our communities across this land, and how places like Planned Parenthood and other organizations like that are propagating messages that just are sucking these young people in and building wrong relationships with them. And we're excited about having her. We have the music group Ballinger there as well. It'll be a great night. So,
where can they find your information online, social media?
They can go to AHC Hope and .org, and they can go to ahopecenter.org, find it on either one of those places. They can call 422-3544 and get information.
Absolutely. Well, as we conclude the show today, any parting wisdom that you would like parents to know?
Being a parent of young adults, I would say invest time in your kids. It's the best investment that you can make. Never take for granted that they have grasped everything you've taught them. You may try to teach them all the good things, never just assume that they've caught it. Be there for them, no matter what. Think back when you were a teenager, you made mistakes, and hopefully you had a mom and dad that were there to love you and support you. And if your kids do make a mistake, love them. Help them learn from that mistake so that they don't make further mistakes. God has given us our kids for just a short period of time, so we need to pour into them as much as we can. And I think the most important thing is the love and the attention and the encouragement that we can pour into them.
Love that. Well, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom.
Privileged to be with you today. I don't know that it's much wisdom, but...
Oh, it is. It is. It's so much, and it's exactly what I think we as parents need to know. So thank you for that. And again, I want to reinforce being authentic, being intentional, and just loving on your kids. It's not so much about the quantity of time you spend with them, but it's the quality, eye contact, conversation. That's what we need to be planting those seeds now while they're still here with us. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.